I'm the leader of Hertfordshire County Council, and welcome to this special meeting of the County Council's Employment Committee. I'm joined by Teresa Heritage, the Vice Chairman of the committee and the Deputy Leader of the Council, Richard Roberts, the Executive Member for Adult Social Care, Stephen Giles Medhurst, the Leader of the Liberal Democrat Group at the Council, and Judy Billing, the Leader of the Labour Group. So those are the 5 members of the committee. So I just want to make, before we start, an announcement in relation to the special factors behind this committee meeting this morning, and that's due to the coronavirus pandemic. The council will be holding this meeting electronically, but nevertheless still in accordance with the relevant regulations. Members of the public will be able to live stream this meeting and also view the meeting subsequently by way of webcast. I would just remind members of the committee that you're asked to keep your microphones and cameras switched off until called to speak, and to switch their microphones and cameras off once they have finished speaking. There are recommendations that we need to consider, and so when we're asked to consider the recommendations, I would ask you to use the chat function to indicate whether you are for, against, or abstaining from the recommendations that we are asked to consider. So the other things that I would just want to highlight in accordance with our normal procedures is that members are reminded that all equalities implications and inequalities impact assessments undertaken in relation to any matter on this agenda must be rigorously considered prior to any decision being reached on that matter, and that also you're reminded that if there are any disclosable pecuniary interests or declarable interests, that they are made at the relevant time in the proceedings. First and foremost, the first item on the agenda is to confirm the minutes, Part 1 minutes, and also then the confidential Part 2 meetings of the meeting of the committee held on the 10th of February. Colleague, can I ask you to indicate whether you are for, against, or abstaining from confirming those minutes via chat? That's great, thank you, colleagues. So those are agreed, and at some stage, when I get back to County Hall, I will sign those as a correct record of that meeting on the 10th of February. So now this morning we have one item on our agenda, and that's in relation to the Director of Adult Care Services, an interim appointment and recruitment. And colleagues will have had the opportunity to have read the report, but can I invite Sally Hopper, the Council's Assistant Director for Human Resources, to introduce the report and the paper to us. Sally.
Thank you, Chairman. So please may I begin by announcing that it's the Director of Care Services interim recruitment we're covering. So we'll focus first on the interim appointment proposal as set out in 1.1, which is to seek members' approval to the appointment of Chris Badger to the post of Interim Director of Adult Care Services for a period of up to 6 months and extendable by a further 6 months should that be necessary. And also to note that the salary for that proposal is as set out in 3.1, which is the equivalent pro rata salary for the interim period. So the next point that I would like to make is that that is an interim position that the council is proposing, and that in 3.2 members will note that we are proposing that a full competitive recruitment process is started within the next 6 months, timing subject to determination of the chief executive and the council leader, bearing in mind what the current COVID-19 response, but to look at the market for a permanent director of adult care services. And then finally, noting that the the proposal is for the current deputy director, to step up into this interim role. Permission is being sought from members in 3.3 that we can backfill Chris Badger's existing role of operations director on a temporary basis to run in parallel with his interim acting up situation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sally. Colleagues, can I invite any comments or observations? If you want to indicate on chat, that would be really helpful. From my own perspective, obviously we have been blessed by having Ian McBeath as our director for nearly 7 years now, and he's made an outstanding contribution to the council. As it happens, I was on a conference call yesterday with his new leader, Susan Hinchcliffe, the leader of Bradford Council, and I was able to tell her that she has recruited an outstanding Director of Adult Social Services, and I'm sure he'll make a massive contribution in Bradford and potentially, I suspect, across the whole of West Yorkshire. So our loss is their gain, but as colleagues will recognise, we have a really strong team in terms of our social care team at Hertfordshire County Council, and these arrangements to ask Chris Badger to step up, I think, are an ideal interim solution prior to the recruitment of Ian's successor and the undertaking of a full recruitment process at that time. Are there any colleagues that wish to come in and comment on the report at this stage? Richard, can I invite you?
Thank you, David. Sorry, I raised my hand and that may not have come through. My apologies. Can I formally endorse the paper's remit, or premise, that we support Chris Badger to be the interim director and that we backfill his post? So if I could do that formally and agree that, so that's fine. Just to say, I think the strength in adult social care in Hertfordshire over a long number of years now should be recognised as the basis upon which we go forward with recruitment. So, for example, Caroline Tapster was previous director and then became the chief executive, and before her, her predecessor is currently the assistant chief executive of the LGA. That's kind of the standard of person. So I guess what I'm saying is that whilst Chris Badger and his colleagues are formidable talents, they genuinely are, they are nationally leading formidable talents, I think we should look externally as well and welcome candidates to come to Hertfordshire to see a system that works very, very well, is recognised nationally. But I think it would do no harm for us to cast our net wide and invite candidates from a broad cross-section of experience to come forward. And that, I think, will give us a invigorated and a vigorous process, if you like, to recruit a new director. If I may, I don't think this is really necessary to say a lot about Ian at the moment. Many people will say a lot of very warm things about him. I can't really genuinely forgive him for going to Bradford, not really. But he is his views are sought by other leaders in his field. I think that speaks volumes for him. I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Richard. And then I've got Judy indicating and Stephen indicating. So, Judy.
Thank you very much. I endorse all the good wishes for Ian, and I didn't ever think I would feel particularly cross with my very close political colleagues in Bradford, but actually I do, and I feel it on the basis of the outstanding work that has been done, but also of the extraordinarily pleasant character Ian has been in his time with us. He's chosen to live for some of that time in Hitchin, which of course was a marvellously wise choice, and he will be terribly badly missed. I think we're almost certainly at this difficult time making the right decision about the way forward. I hadn't actually realised, because I haven't been here that long, that was Sarah Pickup in that job as well?
Yeah.
Okay, I hadn't realised that that was Sarah's position, because when I came, she was doing something else entirely. So goodness me, that is quite a formidable little crew, really, isn't it? And yes, maybe we need to be looking for the most formidable we can find, but this isn't a good moment to be doing it. And I do think that Chris will be absolutely excellent in the role. Sorry, I didn't mean to diminish his position. So I'm supportive of the way forward. Very cross with my friends in Bradford, but we have to live with these things.
Judy, thank you. Stephen.
Yep, successfully on. Yes, I echo the comments of both Richard and Judy. Indeed, when I was told by Owen that Ian was leaving, I did say, was there anything we could do to retain him? I think Owen said, only if we move Hertfordshire closer to Bradford. Which is a
Or
fair
Barnsley.
point.
Or Barnsley.
Barnsley. So certainly further north anyway, which obviously is not possible. He will be missed, and a lot more will be said at the appropriate time at council, I hope, and we're given the opportunity to do so, certainly from myself and certainly from my colleagues who've had a lot of detailed working with him. The interim arrangements seem, given the current circumstances, eminently suitable to be undertaken, and we'll have to very much plan the recruitment exercise. And certainly the sphere of excellence that we do have in Hertfordshire is very noticeable, and we'll be looking for a high caliber candidates to take on this particularly important role going forward, certainly post COVID-19. And it's important, obviously, we do have proper interim arrangements, and this is very sensible arrangement that's been undertaken, and retaining the expertise in-house going forward for certainly the next 6 months over the period that we'll need to undertake the recruitment exercise. So from my side, this is fully endorsed.
Thank you, Stephen. And then Teresa Heritage.
Thank you, Leader. Merely to endorse everything that's been said before, I've worked very closely with Ian for many, many years, and also worked within his portfolio, and I'm going to miss him immensely, and I've told him that already. But actually really do endorse Chris Badger in this interim role. I found Chris extremely resourceful and helpful towards members, and I'm sure he will continue to do so during this time. So yes, fully endorse the recommendations.
Thanks, Teresa. So for the benefit of those who are watching this web stream, I am going to read the recommendations, the three recommendations from the report, and then I'm going to invite colleagues to vote whether they are for, against, or abstaining. But let me just read those three recommendations. Firstly, at 3.1, that Chris Badger, Operations Director, Adult Care Services, is appointed to the role of Interim Director of Adult Care Services with effect from 16th August 2020 for a period of up to 6 months, extendable for a further period of 6 months, on a salary of £128,591 per annum, equivalent pro rata for the interim period. At 3.2, that a full competitive recruitment process is started within the next 6 months, timing subject to determination by the Chief Executive in consultation with the Council Leader in respect of the permanent role of Director of Adult Care Services. And then at 3.3, that permission is granted to backfill Chris Badger's existing role of Operations Director, Adult Care Services on a temporary basis in parallel with Chris Badger's appointment as Interim Director of Adult Care Services, such a backfill to be sourced using an internal process. So colleagues, can I put those recommendations, and do you agree with them? So thank you for confirming that. So I can confirm that those recommendations are agreed. And that, colleagues, concludes our meeting this morning. So thank you for your attendance. Thanks for your participation. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, colleagues.
Thanks, David.